members of Mugglehead Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
Welcome, Star Wars fans. Welcome, Kenobi fans. Welcome. We're gonna cry. This is gonna be our spoiler discussion review, reaction, everything about the part 6 of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. We call it the Kenobi series around here because Obi-Wan Kenobi series is just too long to say.
It is too many words.
It's the Bin series. There we go. Not anymore. Like you said, it's spoilers. We're going to discuss everything that happened in this episode and some details. I brought visual aids. It's one of the. It's going to be one of those episodes. I just told her before I hit record. It could be an hour. I'm going to try to keep it under half an hour. No promises.
We still have a whole nother show to watch.
Yes.
Do a thing on. So.
I want to start there. We talked about it today because Force Center talked about it on their news episode. And the having Miss Marvel and Kenobi on the same day. It's first world problems, nerd problems, obviously. But having them both in the same day when I want to talk about Kenobi for 7 hours, but I need to go watch Miss Marvel because I'm going to watch Miss Marvel and talk about that for an hour and a half. It really. I am supposed to be at work. I'm supposed to do my job, and I'm like watching Kenobi on my phone. It's a little frustrating having them both on the same day.
Yeah, it's a little much. Spread them out. Spread the love.
And
I get it. I guess
I get it.
You were expecting people to not want to watch Miss Marvel, and so you put it on with Kenobi.
A different demographic. Supposedly, it's supposed to be for a younger audience, but I'm digging it. Shit out of that show. But we're here to talk about Kenobi. Okay. I've watched this episode twice. I want to watch the whole series in one sitting, which you can do because I don't think one episode. I think one episode is like 44 minutes. I think at the longest.
Yeah. Okay.
If they did run them all in the theater at one time, I would go. I think this experience on the big screen could be very interesting.
Yeah.
I have some issues on how the volume is going to translate through that process.
True.
But, for me, as we sit right now, Rebels is my favorite Star Wars show, and Book of Boba Fett's my second. This is in that conversation.
Oh, okay. I was like, Rebels? Oh, yeah.
Rebels
it's one of the ones I don't watch.
Rebels is definitely... I'm rewatching it as I'm running on the treadmill. And I love that show. I'll rewatch it as soon as I get done. I'll probably rewatch The Bad Batch again. But I love that show and what that show means, and which is why I love Book of Boba Fett so much. It's much the same themes and parallels and stuff like that going on there. But this, I didn't want a Kenobi series. I didn't want to go back and spend time with a character that we've moved on from as much as we love him from the prequels. And this hit every beat for me to a T. I am satisfied, very satisfied with what this show gave me. How do you feel?
I was just trying to.
I was trying to give you time to think.
Yeah. I was still. I mean, it's up there as far as I don't watch any of the cartoon.
It's called animation.
Sorry, the animation Star Wars.
Feel a little bit more adult.
Okay.
I don't watch those cartoons on Saturday mornings anymore.
Comic books. Okay.
I have to.
I don't read any or watch any of the animated shows. I mean, this is up there. I mean, I might like it better than The Mandalorian.
I can understand that conversation because I'm having that with myself right now.
I think for me, like The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett are fine. I liked them. Right. Obviously everybody loves Grogu, so that's an easy sell.
He's around here somewhere.
Well, there's one over there, and there's one in there, and there's one over there. I think this one kind of is a little more nostalgic for me. Just because it's Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I saw the OG ones, and then I liked Ewan McGregor as young Obi-Wan in the prequels, and I did not hate the prequels. They have their issues, but I did not hate them. Um, so yeah, I mean,
I can get behind that conversation. Um, the Mandalorian is a very different kind of setup and very different kind of feel than the rest of Star Wars.
yeah,
Even with the Luke and Ahsoka showing up with lightsabers and the dark saber showing up,
yeah,
it's a very much a different feel, different part of the universe, which is why I liked it so much
yeah,
and why I still like it.
yeah,
And I still like that they're adding these characters and building this universe around that character and that part of the timeline. But this and Book of Boba Fett just hit me in all the right places for different reasons, for completely different reasons. But there was just something about what this show said, told us, allowed us to sit with and marinate with, and then there's an epic fight at the end
yeah.
that we really, really wanted. And
And you got Vader on the bridge of his ship,
on the Devastator, I like you
walking
like
down, dun dun dun. I'm like in
handrails.
my head, I'm like every fanboy is nerdgasming right now.
Every time I see that bridge, I'm like, handrails. Can we get some handrails?
Nope. You need to
Empire
be
has no
badass
state
to
OSHA at all in the
you need
Empire.
to be badass to walk down there.
It hit me. Yes, nostalgia stuff is there. I understand that, but as an aging man, having your faith in something lost and then regained because of outside forces kind of force you to come to terms with that is really it. Book of Boba Fett hit a lot of those same points, and so I just it out if this story was Logan, which also hit me kind of the same way. That idea of if this was not wrapped in laser swords and spaceships, I think it would have the same general effect to me. The issue is I probably wouldn't watch it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not on the creator's fault of who makes the same kind of story without laser swords and spaceships. It's not
Right.
their fault. That's just
Right.
a me thing.
Right. No, it's a Lucas thing. He's gonna laser swords and spaceships, and he's gonna teach you something while he's at it.
And that's why we love our Lord and Savior, Kevin Feige. No, George Lucas. Okay.
Thanos. We have a lot of lords and saviors.
Yes, there is our Lord and Thanos is, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the episode. Let's talk about the Reva stuff. Reva.
Reva.
Let's talk about the Reva stuff first. Um, the idea of her going to Tatooine to kill Luke to I don't specifically remember in the last episode um, the message saying Anakin's son or Anakin's child in that message.
No.
But a lot of people jump to that conclusion. I'm there. I had the same kind of general thought until I kind of thought about it a little bit. But I think it felt much more about her wanting to get back at Ben for kind of throwing her at Vader and knowing that Ben was protecting somebody on Tatooine,
Right.
and it happened to be a child who was under the care of Uncle of Owen. If that's where I went with where I eventually went with it. But her showing up, and stalking like a monster,
Yeah.
in the dark after Luke. And what Owen and Beru's a badass, by the way.
Yeah.
And
He
Owen
is.
held his own against a force wielder with
Right.
a big pipe.
But now you know why Owen limps.
And I love that like subtle little again
New
show
Hope.
don't tell.
Yeah.
But I just like that process. I like that what they were trying to do with that part of the story.
Yeah. I feel like it was a little rushed, and
We'll
it makes
we'll get
me
to that part of the conversation.
okay.
The
That
timing,
makes me a little sad because I liked Reva's. I mean, this sounds bad. I liked her character, but we talked about
Yeah.
this in the first couple episodes. I think it was like 3 or 4, where we were like, we freaking hate this person.
Yeah.
And that's good acting, and that's
good writing,
good storytelling,
yeah,
that hate somebody she's not really that person.
yeah,
And it just the ending fell a little flat for me. Like, she was willing to torture Leia, but now she's not willing to kill Luke. And maybe that's because things have happened between then and now, but I don't feel like we got enough time for us to sit with it and her to sit with it to have gotten from point A to point Z
yeah,
in literally like a day.
yeah, yeah. And I can. That's my one like critique, I guess, of her arc is that she was essentially the big bad villain in this,
Yeah.
with Vader lurking in the background. One of the reasons I love Vader so much as a character is that we don't see him very much, and so having her be the big bad, the driving protagonist of
Mhm.
this show, to have her, I accept the way they showed it. I agree. She needs another scene. I think if they have one more scene with her, maybe
I feel
in
like
the
there needed to
ship.
be another episode.
Well, yes, and I want to get into that talk because I think that's my biggest criticism about the show is the length of it. But I think if we had one scene with her on the ship flying to Tatooine, even if it's a 2-minute scene of her having flashbacks
Yeah.
about being a Padawan, and then the Luke stuff, and then
Yeah.
how they found her on the streets, and how like not the Luke stuff, the Anakin stuff. Like I think if you spend that time and her going through that process, because by the time she gets to Tatooine, she's already starting to kind of physically show that she's stepping away from the dark and maybe going towards the middle, maybe not necessarily the light.
Yeah,
But
just
the
in her
costume choice,
costume. Yeah,
yeah,
she's like it's a half Inquisitor, half Jedi
and her hair's done
costume.
different, and
Yeah,
like
it's like down. It's not all severely pulled
yeah,
back.
yeah,
But
and
and she is hurt. You see that kind of as she's walking up. She's kind of limping or whatever. Um, but yeah, it was that whole thing was just yeah.
I get it. That's if that's my one critique is that we didn't get to spend enough time with Reva. I'm happy with this show. Like
Yeah.
we're not going to spend enough time with enough.
I didn't get to spend enough time with anybody.
Right. Again, we're going to have that part of the conversation in a minute. Okay, so her fight with Owen and Beru goes exactly like you think it is, even though she's hurt. And Luke runs off. Now, a lot of people, for a minute this morning after I watched the episode, were saying they broke continuity, that Luke had never seen a lightsaber before, or a force wielder before. And and I, I'm not going to criticize people for the way they watch the show, but if you spend enough time or rewatch it, you see he never sees her. He's jumping out of the window when she enters the room. He's running across this desert. He gets to the mountains. He's above her. She doesn't have her lightsaber out.
And
her
I don't know
hood
that
up.
they ever specifically said he's never seen somebody wield the Force.
Right.
He just was unaware of what the Force was,
or a lightsaber,
or a lightsaber.
Right.
He never saw a lightsaber. She
Right.
didn't use one on
Right.
him, and he was above her, and she, like you said, probably. I mean, he saw her and then was trying to run, and in his 10-year-old mind, he slipped and fell.
Yep.
So
Yep.
he doesn't. If nobody ever says she used the Force on you,
Yeah, he's not gonna. He's just
he
gonna
has
know
no
that
idea.
he fell,
Yeah.
and then he hit his head and was unconscious. And so when she goes to try to kill him, she has all the flashes of what happened with Anakin, and she chooses not to continue the circle of violence that was impaled. I didn't mean to do that, but
But
that's funny poo.
True.
But having this circle of violence being broken by her, that was thrust upon, that
Right.
doesn't work either.
Forced.
Forced. We'll go with forced. But that having that happen, I love that. I don't know if I felt that she was redeemable because of what she attempted to do to Leia,
Right.
but once they kind of allowed you to see what happened to her and what she was really trying to do, her trying her going to kill Luke and seeing herself
Yeah.
is, again, show don't tell storytelling. It takes some effort to have people to see that, and I understand people complaining about that because I want that 2 minute scene I was talking about with her already kind of questioning her process, her
Right.
thought process or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
But I loved that. I loved that she couldn't do it because she realized she's doing the same thing that Anakin did to her,
Right.
and she couldn't continue that cycle. And I now she still has to pay for what she did, or 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 pay penance. And so if they when they do the Path show and she's one of the people that's helping lead younglings to safety, that's her penance, and that conflict of who you used to be and who you are now. I'm here for that whole conversation, but I just like that she decided on her own, and her scene with Obi-Wan and kneeling in the desert, her crying and just saying, "I couldn't do it. I couldn't. I couldn't. I couldn't save them. I couldn't avenge them. Does that make me like him?" And Obi-Wan, not Ben. Obi-Wan was back. But Obi-Wan saying, "No, you chose the right thing. Now what you do from here is he didn't say penance, but that what you do from here on out is up to you, and that's your penance." And
Yeah.
and I just I love that completion of her arc. We don't get anything else extra with her after Obi-Wan accepts her as who she is and helps her up off the ground.
Yeah.
We get nothing else. I don't want. I don't. We didn't need anything else from her for this series. Like
Yeah. I mean, I'd be okay if she didn't. Not that I didn't love her, not that but I would be okay if her character, if that's just it.
yes,
I'm okay with that.
yes. And if she shows up in a book or a comic somewhere down the line as a
Sure.
reference
Yeah,
or something,
that's fine.
I'd be cool with that too.
That's fine.
I'm over with that.
I would like to point out that there are a million lightsabers buried in the desert on Tatooine. So if anybody's looking for a lightsaber, just go to Tatooine and start digging in the desert. You're gonna find one.
There's a meme going around of Dooku in a metal detectorist outfit. Not Dooku. Yeah, Dooku. Count Dooku. No, not Dooku. Grievous. Sorry, Grievous. It's Grievous. It's Grievous's head on like some old English guy's body metal detector. Like, I heard there are some things on the sand here. You're like, it's just hilarious. Grievous, not Dooku.
Right.
Grievous.
Grievous has got like 50 arms.
50
so
arms
he
and
needs more
700.
lightsabers.
Yeah. He's almost like an inquisitor with the things that he likes to collect. Uh, let's talk about Obi-Wan deciding to leave the transport ship and what that means for both himself, but the beginnings of what is essentially going to be the rebellion. And him knowing that Vader is so singularly focused on him.
Yep.
He knows that he can lead Vader away from them, and they can get away without the lightspeed engines working and bad motivators every
Those
fucking time.
Darn motivators, they never work right.
I don't know what it is. I also have a bad motivator. Especially between 6 and 2:30. But the him understanding that was taught to us in the last episode.
Yeah.
And then expanded upon in this episode.
Yeah. Well, he's finally, I mean, you see it basically from the last episode through to the end of their fight in this episode, is him finally kind of coming to terms with who Anakin was at the end and who he is and isn't now.
Yeah.
And the part that he himself did or didn't have in making him from Anakin to Darth. Like, that's all. again, he's compartmentalized. He's not thinking about that. It's over there, and that's part of what he's had to kind of bring up. So this is like the last of that. Um, he is coming after him. That was from the last episode. You're bringing him to me, and when he told Reva that, and then him realizing, okay, if I leave, he will follow me because he is so singularly focused on me. And then the fight, which we can get into more.
Right. I like that he makes the decision, and he frames it because somebody on the transport says, "I thought we decided all to go together."
Yeah.
And I love his reply, and his reply was, "You have all helped protect us Jedi for so long. Allow me to now protect you."
Yeah.
And that is one of the last stones that Ben needs to become Obi-Wan again.
It's one of them. Yes,
it's one of the last stones. It's not the last
yeah.
stone, but it's that one of him accepting that for me to, as a Jedi, to protect those who need protecting, I need to go away. And my going away is going to pull the bad guy away from you guys.
Mhm.
And I like that framing device because that's a continuous um, moral dilemma within Star Wars of how do you fight, when do you fight, and Jedi specifically trying to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Some people are complaining a little bit, and again, I can understand the criticism. I won't say bitching, but the understand the criticism of Vader could have gone off in his little transport ship and followed Obi-Wan, and the Devastator could have followed the transport ship and shot him down. But when the boss of bosses is there and says we're doing this as one big thing, we're going that way. Even the Grand Inquisitor asked him we can just stay.
Well, and he had
this.
a look on his face too when he turned the ship. He was like, "Oh God!"
Yeah,
and that's a device to show how singularly focused Darth Vader, Anakin. I mean, it's really the Anakin still in him.
Yeah.
Is about going after Obi-Wan, and you cannot go there with Star Wars. I am sorry, you cannot go. You cannot be like, why didn't they do this? That made total every. I can take every single Star Wars movie and tear it apart like that. This makes no sense. Why did they go there? Why didn't they go do that? Why did stop?
First 5 minutes of the very first movie in 1977. An escape capsule jettisons, and they don't fire it out of the sky.
Right.
With the message to Obi-Wan Kenobi to go help in the rebellion.
There's no life form, sir. But your ship is full of droids. Shoot it down anyway.
Right.
No? Okay.
There are, I call it lovable quirks of Star Wars. That's a lovable quirk of Star Wars, is having that kind of their story, the path story, was done.
Yeah.
And so story wise, continuity wise, Jedi wise, him leaving to pull Vader and the Devastator away is what has always happened. And yes, your logic is correct. They could have split in half and gone after him. But the Empire never makes right decisions. You know what? Our first gun got blown up. Why not build two at twice the price? Oh, that one blew up. Hey, let's build a bigger one. Hey, that didn't work. Let's build a machine gun. It's the Empire is so self-absorbed in their power that they don't see the little nuances that they need to do to really do some damage. And I love the framing device of Obi-Wan deciding to go and taking it, and then Leia not having a fit but telling him no, and then Obi-Wan trusting Raja to take Leia home, that whole thing. Obi-Wan Ben went from not trusting anybody and hating Raja to completely trusting him with the rest of his mission and letting him be like a kind of a true version of a Jedi. And I just love that. And then Leia giving him a hug and putting Lola in his pocket because they were using it to kind of keep everybody safe and not be as afraid or whatever.
Yeah, she was diverting everybody's attention by playing with the robot or whatever.
Let's talk about the fight because, well, it wasn't just a fight. We got a lot of the emotional fight in the last episode, and what that means for both Anakin, Vader, and for Ben, Obi-Wan. And so with this fight, instead of Obi-Wan running away, he went to a place where the two of them could have it out without anybody really having a chance to get hurt. And
right.
That, again, it's a Jedi thing. I'm down for it. But him not running away and him pulling his lightsaber out first. Now let's talk about Anakin. Let's talk about Vader saying, "Have you come to destroy me?" That and another line that happens later with the Anakin helmet and pieces or whatever, and him saying, "I'm the one who killed Anakin."
Yeah, nice.
I think those two scenes are the good that's left in Anakin trying to release his friend from the pain that he's carrying. I'm projecting. I know I'm projecting, but it shows a crack in the Vader armor that Luke is able to widen later down the road.
Right, because I was gonna say, that's in the end when Vader is dying and he tells Luke to take his helmet off, and he's still in there.
Yes,
he's just. I mean, what else has he got to do now? He in for a penny, in for a pound, right? He has literally sold himself, sold to the devil, and he can have regrets and still be in there, but it's too late. And so he can release his master from his, pain or his regret, and I wouldn't say releases Luke, but at least shows him
right.
that,
he
he's in. There's somebody in there, and
this adds to that conversation about what happens in the original trilogy about why is this evil allowing himself to come back towards the light, and why is Anakin the Force ghost at the end? Why is young Anakin? Because that's how he sees himself, and so I like.
That's the Jedi. I was thinking about that actually after this was over. I was like, it's interesting that they put him in there because he wasn't in there originally, right? It was just Obi-Wan, and then they put him in there.
It's not Prowse, it's the other one.
And I was thinking about it, and it's like, well, yeah, because that's when he was a Jedi.
Yes,
that's before again he sold his soul to the devil.
Yes.
So
and I know I'm projecting, but I just want that to be true because
it can be whatever you want it to be.
But it's not based on something false or anything like. There's multiple points inside canon of both books and comics and different things where Anakin sneaks through and is trying to come back to the light, and it's not until the end where he decides to take out Palpatine and save his son that he comes back to the light. But I just think that there's that crack there just enough. And then the next line that Vader gives him, or Obi-Wan says, "I'll do what I must," like mirroring him in Revenge of the Sith. And then Vader says, "Well, then you'll die," because he's still Vader. And then they have an epic fight to a point where Vader slams his hand down on the ground, cracks the surface, and Obi-Wan falls into the hole. And some people are like, this mirrors Obi-Wan and Maul in Phantom Menace. And I was like, yes, that there's that rhythm there. It's also now Anakin, Vader, has the high ground over Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
And then he buries him.
Yep.
And in that fight, we've talked about this in previous episodes, when Vader is fighting Obi-Wan, it's very mechanical, very heavy-handed, very robotic. Obviously, like it's not as fluid as Anakin is. And then when Anakin fights, it's very fluid, whatever. And so watch this fight between Obi-Wan and Vader. You still have Obi-Wan with the fluid, big flourishes or whatever. But you have the big heavy hand of Vader, and then Vader tries to bury him inside a hard sarcophagus that just like he is in with his metal shell and his helmet and stuff like that. I just love the parallels that were going on there. And it takes Obi-Wan remembering, he hears his fights with Anakin and all that stuff and Vader, but then he remembers Leia and Luke and the promise of hope that's going forward. And that's when God mode Obi-Wan Kenobi freaking shows up.
Dun dun dun.
I don't think I've ever seen that version of this Kenobi. I don't think it happens in Clone Wars. It might happen in Clone Wars. It doesn't happen in the prequels. I don't know about the books all per se, but him force blasting himself out of the grave and then lifting rocks, another complete parallel of Last Jedi, and just throwing him at Vader.
Yeah.
It just so cool. And people are, this fight wasn't big enough for shut your dirty whore mouth.
It was exactly what I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And then he gets, you can tell because Obi-Wan's always kind of been more, like you say, more elegant about and chooses his battles and generally doesn't let anger take him over, which is kind of the lesson that he's always tried to teach Anakin. Headphones are sliding off my head. And you see at the very end that he does. Like, anger does take over and he just, and slices his helmet open.
Yeah.
And then he sees, Anakin in there and kind of loses it for a bit.
I appreciate the rhythm of that part of the fight. It mirrors Ahsoka and Vader's fight in the end of season 2 of Rebels, and she cracks open Vader's helmet much in the same move, which is
I think maybe he'd get that like reinforced,
or just made out of Beskar or something. Like just Stormtrooper armor isn't very good either. So just think about those guys, and Vader's going to those guys to build the suit. But in the fight with Ahsoka, she slashes the right side of his face, and you get to see the yellow eye, and Anakin with the Vader modulation talks to Ahsoka, and so in this fight, you get Obi-Wan breaking the left side open, and you get Hayden as Anakin with James Earl Jones thrown in with the modulation fight back and forth. I like somebody. I wish I remember the TikToker that pointed this out. It's somebody I follow on a regular basis. But Ahsoka was able to crack the facade of Vader to get to Anakin, one side of the helmet, and then Obi-Wan mirrors it on the other side. But neither one of us was completely able to remove his helmet to reveal Anakin. It's only Luke and his compassion that was able to do it, and which is why he was able to have him take off his helmet at the end.
Well, and Anakin Vader has no real grudge. I mean, Luke's his son, right? There's no personal grudge there. He's doing what he's doing because he's being told by.
Yes.
So,
but it's a nice. Ahsoka was one of the people that was able to get to Anakin. Obi-Wan was one of the people to get to Anakin, but neither one of them were able to completely free Anakin from Darth Vader. That was only Luke.
Yep.
And I love that. I love if Padme was around, she might have been the only other person who was able to do that.
Right.
And I'm not going to bring up Leia because for the purposes of this conversation, Leia is not the one to free Anakin. Leia is the one to accept Anakin back. I think in this conversation, I don't think that Leia's the one to sit there and say, "You're free to be yourself again." I think she's the one who Anakin, if Anakin was allowed to live after Empire or Revenge of the Jedi, Return of the Jedi, I do that every time. um, if Anakin was allowed to live, Leia would have been the one to go to him to say, "You're okay."
Yeah.
Because that's who she is as a character.
Yeah.
That's kind of her force ability, stuff like that. So, for the purposes of this conversation, Ahsoka tried to get to him, almost got there. Obi-Wan almost got there, but it was Luke that got there.
Yep.
And him leaving him and calling him Darth when he leaves.
Yeah.
After
Well, because he said that Anakin is truly dead.
Truly dead, yeah.
And then called him Darth.
Yeah.
Because it's like dead naming him, right?
Yeah,
if you're going to continue to call him Anakin,
yeah,
not his name.
Yeah.
He just told you he's dead.
So let's talk about a little bit of the stuff at the end. Of Vader at Mustafar in his castle on the Skype call with Uncle Palpy. I love that Ian will show up anytime to play that character. He loves.
You need me to put on the makeup? I'm there.
I'm in. But him kind of poking at Vader again. Vader making the comment, "He's not going to beat me again." Like,
yeah, he's like sitting there stewing.
We're gonna and destroy everything in the path to find him, and he's not gonna beat me again.
And Palpatine's like, "I thought this. What are you doing?
Right.
I thought this wasn't your purpose. This is your purpose." And he's like, "Oh, no, yeah.
All right, I'll only serve you." But that's just another example of Palpatine just poking the bear at Vader, like all the time.
Well, he's reasserting his will or his agenda on Vader, where before he's being Anakin, he's being, I'm gonna get him and
yep. And I like that we left the shot that Palpy's hologram fades and the camera pans back and it's Vader in the castle alone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very much looks like how he looks outside of his visor. It's like he's looking through the slit and everything, and seeing the world in a very narrow view, but he's there alone, which is how the dark side, the Sith, how they always kind of force people to be alone. The Empire is all about keeping people apart from each other and pushing for separation of people, and I'm there's a lot of parallels with the modern world, which is again something Lucas talked about from jump. But we're stronger together is always one of the biggest teaching things in Star Wars, and they give the example of what it's like to be alone and stew with your defeats and your dark side and whatever. And that was that kind of a visual display of that. I really like that. I liked going back to Alderaan. We get some closure with Leia. Leia gives Obi-Wan his name back instead of calling him Ben. She thanks Obi-Wan. I love that he gets off the ship. Okay, let's talk about Leia dressing herself in an outfit that looks a lot like her in The New Hope. And Luke's outfit, too, at the end of the episode matches how he looks in A New Hope, too. So, again, parallels. It's like it's all poetry. Rhythm. But Obi-Wan comes off the ship. Lola's falling behind him. Leia's like, "Lola!" And she's like,
he's like, "Hey, good to see you too."
Obi-Wan gets it. He's like, "I'm not going to stop a girl from hurting a droid." And the Organas give him, like a thank you, and him saying, "You know how to get a hold of me. Come back and get, whenever you need help." Just kind of
in 9 years.
In 9 years, laying the groundwork going forward, and then just the whole, "Am I ever going to see you again? I don't know. Possibly." Again, that's just a trope I won't say trope within Star Wars, but it's a rhythm within Star Wars. We just had it with Ahsoka and Luke and the second season of Mandalorian. Am I ever going to see you again? What's your heart tell you? Kind of like that. I just love that, and just Leia accepting Obi-Wan, thanking him for who he was, and then running back and him talking about her parents and fearlessness and driven and caring and everything, and kind of talking about Padme and Anakin without saying their names, without because we don't. She doesn't find out. Well, obviously, in Return of the Jedi, she finds out who Anakin is, but she doesn't learn about Padme until later too. So I just love that kind of completion of that arc.
Yep.
So Leia's done. We go with Obi-Wan to the cave. He's packing his shit. He's got his Obi-Wan robe on. Oh, the holster. Um, Obi-Wan gave the holster from Tala to Leia. This is the Leia comic. If you see right there, it's the holster. I told you I had visual aids. And she also has it on Endor. So it's a keepsake that she has with her, and we talked about how she names her son Ben because of what happens in this,
Right.
in this series. Lola in the holster, which was just I have a place to put my droid now. It's perfect. Uh, uh, Obi-Wan goes to his cave, packs all of his things. He's in most of his Jedi robe, and he kind of like says goodbye to that part of his life. And he goes and sees Owen and says, "Hey, Luke just needs to be a boy. I'm out of here. I'm hands off, whatever." And then Owen asks Obi-Wan if he would like to meet Luke because apparently that hasn't happened yet.
Well, no, I mean, stay away.
Yeah, and I like that they had that moment where Owen accepts Obi-Wan.
Well, and if you think about it, he has to at some point because he talks about him in A New Hope. He's like, couldn't they talking about old Ben, so he knows who Ben is.
Yeah, yeah.
Somebody, kind of the hermit that lives in the cave down the way. So
Right.
he has to meet him
At some point. Right, right. But Owen allowing him to give him the ship that Luke is playing with at the beginning of New Hope, and then he finally says the line. He said the thing. He said the thing. Hello there. And I just like that completion. Now we've completed. He no longer has to watch over Luke. He's just there.
Yeah. And there had been a couple of times throughout the where you're like, he's gonna say the word, and he doesn't. He said like hello, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then this time, completely not thinking.
Yeah.
He's gonna say it, and he says it.
He says it. And there's a GIF going around, a video going around of uh, Revenge, Ewan in Revenge of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith. I did it again. A New Hope in this series, and they all sound exactly the same, even though it's Alec Guinness saying it and whatever. But it was a nice little touch. And then, Obi-Wan just takes off with his Yopi and starts walking off into the desert, and Qui-Gon shows up for about goddamn time. He's been calling his name for 6 episodes. But I like snarky Qui-Gon. Like, it took you long enough.
Yeah.
Like, trying to just poke his Padawan just a little bit, like, you never listened to me, and I told you you never listened to me. But him, like, okay, let's go. We have work to do, and I just like that. Um, I, like I said earlier, I'm very satisfied with this season. I'm very happy with it. I don't feel like we need any more. Everyone wants to do more. Everyone wants to do more. Ewan, Hayden, Deborah, uh, um, Owen, Baru, everybody wants to come back. You found a gold mine in Vivian, who played Leia. Like it, there's, but this story is so completely wrapped up in tights and sits tightly with A New Hope. That I don't know if there's a story there to be told. I think there is. What that story is, I don't know,
well,
but
and it doesn't have
I agree.
because obviously, again, knows who he is. So
Right.
that's something going on with the neighbors, whatever, for a while. But Leia doesn't. She's never. I mean, she never meets him again.
Right. Not that we know of, at least right now.
Right, and it doesn't make sense for her to
Right.
meet him again. So, but I mean, 9 years of him doing
and they laid some groundwork with the path and what that could mean, and telling that story, which I think is an important story to tell, because you can frame it within the Star Wars universe, uh, but kind of teach the lesson of what the Underground Railroad was in the slavery era here in the States, and just
go out and try to find people and
or is asked to come back and help because they have another Inquisitor shows up. You could bring the fifth brother back, and we're not to the point where he shows up in Rebels, and so that would be cool. I'm there for it. But with all that being said, if they don't do another series, I'm okay. Like I love this series, like I said earlier. But if they do another series, it needs to be more than 6 episodes. I know that there was supposed to be a movie. They were going to announce it at D23 in 2017. Like the guy who was writing and directing the movie was on site, and they pulled the plug before he walked out on stage. Like this was supposed to be a movie, and it's been changed and manipulated and moved around a couple different times. We got this series, and it was done beautifully, and I really am happy with it. But 6 episodes, where the longest one was 44 minutes or 45 minutes, I I'm going to be super selfish. I want more. I want a 10 episode arc. I want a 1 episode arc. A 1 hour episode arcs. Eight would be fine too, but being super selfish at this point in time, because I just love living in this part of the universe of Star Wars. So when we were talking about earlier about not having that extra time with Reva, with an 8 or 10 episode, you could spend a whole episode with her backstory and who she was and how she is and why she makes the decision that she does at the end, instead of having one little flash of young her laying there and stuff. And so I think there's something there overall. But like I said, I love this series. I told you we could be almost an hour. Uh, uh, I'm being really good actually. I'm not even going into the depths of other things, but um, we have Andor coming in August, and we'll be doing week to week episodes with that one. That one's 12 episodes, so they're going to spend some time in that meat of that story. And so, if you are interested in watching more of us talk, more of me talking and her throwing 2 cents in every once in a while, please like and subscribe to this channel, and tell us what you thought about the series as a whole, our episode reviews and stuff like that in the comments. We just ask that you be nice. Like I said, like and subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, because we're doing Miss Marvel next, and we're doing all kinds of movie reviews and trailer reactions and stuff like that. And we follow us on all the social media stuff: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Links in the description down below. Good. I like it. It's good. It's good. Hello there. And until next time, cult members, may the force be with you always.